Streaming Awards. What is the Streaming Awards? If you are not familiar with it, last year it's an award show where we give the viewers, you audience members, to nominate any live show of your choice within certain categories. And then the public is going to vote for their favorite live show streamers. Now, this is a chance for some smaller, like us little guys around here. You know, we're not on broadcast TV maybe, but we do have a great community online. So this is honoring all of those online communities. We are now accepting nominations, so you can head to www.streamingawards.com to submit your nominations now. We also, if you remember this from last year too, open our own doors here at our studio for in-office viewers. So you have the ability to grab a ticket to come and physically be here for the Streaming Awards. We would love to have you and meet you, but you might want to hurry up and get that because there's only 50 tickets. We have kind of a smaller space, so you want to make sure that you get them before they run out. And finally, this week's Streamer Spotlight is from the PTZOptics user group this time. And it is from Steven, who's doing a 3-camera production system in New Guinea. Very cool setup. Thank you for sharing those photos. And speaking of the user group, this is a perfect example of the kind of content that we're talking about in the user group. Users are sharing their use cases, experiences, troubles, and really getting to know what's possible with PTZOptics products. So go to facebook.com/groups/PTZOpticsPals if you have not joined the group yet. We want to chat with you and get to know you.
All right, and then finally, Tess, you're going to show your cell phone really quickly.
Okay, hold on.
We prepared this, so I want to make sure we get to it.
We were just speaking about the user group a little bit. I want to give you guys, what's going on here? I must have moved it accidentally. I wanted to give you guys a little quick sneak peek of the user group. We know we talk a lot about it, but it really is the hub of all communications. When you're buying PTZOptics cameras, you are getting, you know, the wonderful cameras themselves, but you're getting the support, the technicians, but you're also getting community support because we've grown this really awesome community online of people with like-minded interests and doing similar things. So this is something that I wanted to talk about. We've gotten a couple comments, concerns about camera vibration, if you're mounting them a certain way, if there's a lot of noise, movement, bass going on in your room. So Paul is brainstorming a little bit about some ways to provide a solution for you guys for that, because we have got a couple questions about that lately. So check out the link in the user group if you're one of those people that reached out about that. We are thinking about some more ways to help you guys with that as well. And you basically just see, like, Rick was one of the ones commenting about the vibration, but it's awesome that he's sharing the actual setup of his camera. What else are people talking about in the user group this week? Collaborations, suggestions for us, which is really amazing. We've linked to the Streaming Awards information as well in the user group, so feel free to head there if you're unsure about how to access that. This is Steven's very own post that we just shared in the Streaming Spotlight. And then just some helpful and fun comments. And we love getting ones like this with happy customers. Jimmy saying about how much he loves his cameras. So be sure to head over to the user group, guys. This is last week's shared post. And join the fun.
Great. Thank you, Tess. So all of this and more is coming up next. Here we go.
PTZOptics presents Back to the Basics Live. Every Wednesday at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern. A high-definition broadcast on Facebook, focusing on camera line tutorials with our Chief Screening Officer, Paul Richards, and our social media manager, Tess Protesto. Back to the Basics Live. New videos every Wednesday.
Okay, so today we're talking about bandwidth for live streaming. I've got a great presentation I want to jump into and really show you guys a lot about bandwidth for streaming. Last week we talked about recommended RTSP settings and RTMP settings and NDI settings, and this is going to dovetail nicely into this conversation.
Yeah, we're still into the techie stuff, so it'll be another good learning experience for me today. Hopefully it will be helpful for a bunch of you guys out there too.
Cool, so let's jump into it. So bandwidth for live streaming. So whether we'll talk about internal and external to your network. Let's jump into it. So we can talk about outbound bandwidth, RTMP streaming to your CDN, your content delivery network, and then we'll talk about local area network traffic on your network switch. And there's a picture. This is going back 5 or 6 or 10 episodes. We had the LAN Scout Junior. This is a testing tool that you can purchase. When we put in our network here, which we're going to look at today, we had maybe 25, 30 different devices that are all being plugged into the network. Always buy a network switch that's bigger than you think, because you always have more. And we have Wi-Fi routers, all of these things, grabbing IP addresses, and we have a really great video breaking that all down. But today we're talking about bandwidth in general, because we're getting a lot of questions about that. This is a couple pictures of our network switch. I will link
We love
below.
our streaming network.
We made a whole episode about running the cables and testing the cables and which cables we chose. We did mainly Cat 5 with some Cat 6 backbones. But I wanted to show you guys what our network looks like. So from the left, you're seeing the network switch. On the right, in the center, you're seeing a little hand-drawn diagram from Matt Davis, our lead engineer. And then on the far right, you're seeing a Ubiquiti Wi-Fi
One day those
router.
drawings will be worth money.
Yes.
When he's getting the Pulitzer
Yeah,
Prize or something.
we're going to frame that eventually. So if we go to our next slide, this is the network level layout from a high level. So the router you get from Comcast or Verizon or AT&T or Cox, whoever's your internet service provider, usually gives you a router, and that router has access to the internet at certain speeds. So there's download speeds and there's upload speeds. Downloads when you're downloading files. Upload is when you're streaming. So that's an important number to think about. Next, we have a firewall to protect us from hackers and things of that nature. Then we have the firewall plugged into a 24-port PoE switch. And PoE is power over Ethernet. That plugs into all of our devices. It also could power, but does not power, I don't believe, or does power actually, our Wi-Fi access points. We weren't able to daisy chain them, but we were able to power them. These are 802.11 AC wireless access points from Ubiquiti. And RTMP, see I put that box there because that's inside our network, and then from the router out, that's outside our network. So here's a little look at our Ubiquiti firewall. These are really important because they put policies in place to protect your network. And you can create a virtual network with these, and you can have security, and you can have site-to-site VPN, so people can have a virtual
So Matt
private
can
tunnel.
control.
He can come in and makes changes with this. We also have what's called a managed switch, and that's something you really want to look into when you're putting in a network that's going to be used for live streaming, because you can manage each port on your switch. So we have a fully managed gigabit switch. A gigabit is 1,000 megabits, and that's something we're going to be looking into when we're talking about bandwidth on a local area network. This is something that Matt also uses, the Unified Cloud Key. We're talking about our network because that's what we're most familiar with. Your network may have something different. But this is that cloud key that is actually a little Android computer that Matt Davis can log into and view all.
Is that the same thing that we were just talking about, or they
It's
work
a little
together?
different than the firewall, but this is actually more what we were mentioning, where Matt can log in remotely. And then we have our Wi-Fi access points. And AC, you can see, is 5 times faster than N, 802.11 AC. And it does not support multicast, but it's cost effective and it's high performance for our wireless. Then the final piece here, we pay $250 a month for a Comcast connection that gives us 150 download, 200 upload. We're here in Philadelphia. I'm a little jealous of you guys out on the West Coast that say that they get 200 up and down and they can live stream in 4K and their internet speeds are incredible. We don't have that great of internet speeds, but it's still amazing, and it's still a gift where we're from. It's amazing what we have access to. So this is what we're going to talk about today, internal and external. So external is RTMP streaming, and to the right, you're seeing vMix and the options. And Michael and I were just looking at this. Right now, we're streaming at 720p at 3.5 megabits per second to Facebook, and we're streaming 1080p at 4.5 megabits to YouTube. So YouTube's getting a little bit better quality. But if you add those two together, that's our total upload speed. So some examples here. We're getting a question here. Where could I purchase the Gigabit Switch, the Gigabit Switch? Curtis Brooks Media Productions. Ubiquiti actually has a partner program. So you can become a Ubiquiti partner, or you can purchase from an existing Ubiquiti partner. So all you have to do is, if you have 3 streams to Facebook pages, which you might not want to do with the API because you're not allowed to do that. But if you, let's say you've got 1 to YouTube, 1 to Facebook, and 1 to Twitch, you just add those up, and that's your total upload speed. So it's pretty straightforward, but here's your tip. Leave 30 to 50% headroom.
Which part are you adding up?
So
The 4.5 number?
Yes, that's the main number to look at, because audio is very minimal. So if you've got 2 1080p 4.5 megabit streams going out, that's 9 total. If you have 3 1080p streams at 4.5 megabits, that's 13.5 megabits total. In general, the megabits per second is like the quality.
Okay.
So resolution when you're streaming doesn't matter as much as the overall data, the color space, the frames per second. All of those things come into the megabits per second. Now, inside your network, a totally different thing here. This is not being streamed out to the cloud. This is on your local area network switch. And I just want to mention...
Inner office communication.
Inner office communications. Your laptop connecting to Michael's stream, for example.
Okay.
We just went over this last week, I just want to mention, right? And we talked about the example RTMP, NDI, and RTSP, kind of really recommended streaming settings for that. And you can download that guide that Matt Davis put together at Virtual Velocity is in Philly, and he gets 150 up and down. Yep, unfortunately, we had to. That's what I wanted. But we had
does
to
Verizon
use
have a little bit
Comcast.
more capability?
Verizon's better, yeah. I wanted Verizon, and in order to make our corporate network work, we had to go with Comcast, which was a sore
Seems to work for us so far.
It's working. It's working. It's just not quite as fast. Anyway, here's an example scenario of NDI, because NDI seems to be where we're getting a lot of the questions. So if you've got a gigabit switch, that can get eaten up pretty quickly by a couple different NDI sources. So let's say, for example, you have a vMix software that's broadcasting an NDI source, and you're pulling it in here.
Yeah.
And then let's say I have my NDI telestrator, which hardly ever works, sitting right here, and it's broadcasting another 100 megabits per second. It's really, this NDI telestrator has been driving me nuts. And then you've got 3 more monitors, 3 more computers running NDI Studio. Also, each one is doing 100 megabits per second. That's 500 megabits. Okay? NDI cameras are usually anywhere from 6 to 12 megabits per second, depending on whether you have it high, medium, or low. And that's a very minimal amount. You can see that's 3 NDI cameras is just that little sliver. So
really?
It's high efficiency. It's very low bandwidth consumption. The larger pieces that you want to think about is software to software, because those are using the 100 megabit pipes. So with that being said, that's one example. And you can see we're leaving a nice 40% headroom.
For what?
30 to 40% headroom. You never want to use all of the bandwidth on your network switch.
All of the bandwidths.
Yeah, you don't want to use them all, because if you do, there'll be packets colliding, and
bad stuff.
Just imagine some techie thing happening, like a spaceship explodes in space.
Without frames per second, it's kind of useless. Make sure to add audio bitrate as well.
Yeah, we had the audio bitrate in our examples, but it's minimal compared to the video, but yes, the audio is 128 kilobits per second is what we were showing in our example. And then with all of that being said, I want to do a quick introduction to multicast. But before we do, I want to launch our trivia. I want to test some of your knowledge. And we've gone over multicast
They seem pretty
before.
smart in here.
These guys are smart, so let's launch our trivia real quick.
And I have yet to
I
see
wanna
Kyle
ask
in the chat today.
a couple questions for based off what we've
Unless
talked
he's just
about.
being quiet.
And